Okay, so picture this. You're at a party, you make the tragic mistake of asking me what I've been reading, and now you're trapped against the kitchen counter for the next 20 minutes, because I'm about to explain a manga about witches who turn people into rocks over paperwork violations. There's no group text getting you out of this one. Put the drink down. We're doing this. So here's the actual premise, and I promise it's way weirder than generic magic school anime number 4000. A kid named Coco lives in a normal non-magic town, and one day she sees a real witch cast a spell in public, and she is obsessed, the way you get obsessed with something at like age 9, and it never fully leaves your bloodstream. Witches in this world are basically the ultimate untouchable elite. Magic isn't some birthright bloodline thing, it's just drawing. You draw a specific magic symbol, called a casting seal, correctly, with the right ink, on the right surface, and reality goes, okay sure, I'll allow it. That's it. That's the whole system. Magic is just extremely fancy, extremely deadly calligraphy. Which sounds democratic and fun until you learn the actual social contract witches operate under, which is, nobody outside the witch community is allowed to know this. At all. Ever. Under any circumstances. It's less magic school and more magic NDA, and witches will straight up erase your memory if you find out too much, which, side note, is an insane thing to normalize as a society, but sure, go off, wizard bureaucracy. Coco, being 9 and having zero chill, finds a witch's spellbook completely by accident, and being a curious little menace, starts tracing the symbols in it, because that's just what you do when you're a kid who found the forbidden book, right? Except one of those symbols is a human transmutation spell, and she accidentally casts it on her own mother, turns her into stone, full statue. Permanently, unless someone with actual training can undo it. This happens in like the first 20 pages. The show does not soften you up first. It just goes, here's a 9-year-old, here's her mom, now she's a lawn ornament, let's begin. This is genuinely one of my favorite cold opens in modern manga, because most shows would treat accidentally petrify your mother as the dramatic season finale. Witch Hat Atelier treats it as the inciting incident of episode 1, the way other shows treat kid finds out they're the chosen one. Here, the kid finds out she's a walking liability with a stone mom in her living room, and that's just Tuesday. Enter Kifri. Kifri is a traveling witch who shows up, sees what happened, and instead of doing the sensible witch society thing, which is apparently wipe this child's memory and pretend this never happened, statue mom included, decides to take Coco in as an apprentice instead. Which, if you think about it for more than 4 seconds, is a wild parenting decision. This man meets a child who has just committed accidental unlicensed reality-altering magic on a family member, and his response is, yeah, move in with me, I'll teach you more of that. Kufri, my man. Some background checks might be in order here. But no, we're doing the morally gray wizard adopts problem child pipeline, and honestly it works, because the found family stuff in this manga genuinely slaps once it gets going. Kufri's atelier already has 3 other apprentices, because witches apparently run their households like a very small, very intense boarding school for traumatized teenage girls. Which, I want to flag that pattern now because we're going to come back to it, and it's doing a lot more thematic heavy lifting than these are just Coco's quirky new friends. First, there's Tetia, who is sweet, a little chaotic, desperately craves being thanked and appreciated, which honestly is just person who grew up not getting enough validation energy, and the show absolutely knows what it's doing there. Then, there's Agat, who's the classic Ice Queen rival archetype, comes from an extremely prestigious old money witch family, got kicked out under accusations of academic fraud she didn't actually commit, and now acts like she personally invented the concept of having standards. And then there's Richa, the moody one who does not want to be here, does not want to follow the rules, and this is the part that gets darker the more you learn about her, was pulled out of her previous apprenticeship because her old master was straight up abusing her. That's not subtext. That's just canonically what happened to this 15-year-old before she got to Kifri's house. So already, 4 episodes in, you've got 1 kid who accidentally petrified her own mom, 1 kid starved for basic emotional validation, 1 kid exiled from her family over a lie, and 1 kid recovering from actual abuse. And the show's vibe is still somehow cozy slice of life about girls learning magic together in a nice house with good lighting. That tonal tightrope is genuinely the whole appeal of this thing. It's giving wholesome found family cottagecore on the surface, while the actual foundation underneath is every single one of these children has been failed by an adult at some point, and this house is essentially magical group therapy with extra steps. Now let's talk about the actual magic system for a second, because it's the part that made me, a grown adult with a job and responsibilities, genuinely stop and go, oh, okay, this is smarter than I expected. Every spell is a casting seal, basically a tattoo-precise diagram you draw, freehand, with special ink, and if literally one line is off, the spell either doesn't work, or, worse, does something horrifically wrong. This means magic in this universe isn't about raw talent or chosen bloodlines. It's about draftsmanship. It's fine motor control. It's steady hands and geometry homework. The most powerful witches in this world are, functionally, elite. Tattoo artists who never mess up a line, which is either the coolest magic system in modern manga or the nerdiest possible answer to what if wizards, but they had to pass a stricter version of the DMV written test, and honestly, both can be true. This is also why the magic must be kept secret from outsiders rule exists in the first place, and it's smarter than your average generic fantasy secrecy clause. It's not, ooh, magic is sacred and mystical, only the chosen may know. It's way more mundane and way more disturbing once you think about it. Casting seals can be drawn on literally anything, including human skin, including other people's skin without their consent. And if regular untrained people got access to that knowledge, you'd get chaos. People drawing forbidden runes on each other, memory wipe symbols, transformation symbols, all with zero training and zero understanding of the consequences. So Witch Society's answer is total information lockdown, enforced by a group of enforcer witches who show up quietly and edit your memory if you learn too much. Big, we regret to inform you that you've seen too much energy. It's basically if the concept of intellectual property law had a baby with a body horror curse. And speaking of body horror, we do need to talk about the antagonists, because this is where the show stops being cozy tea and biscuits magic school and starts being genuinely unsettling. The main villain faction is called the Brimmed Caps, as opposed to the Good Witches, who wear pointed hats, because apparently hat silhouette is load-bearing to this entire society's moral alignment system, which, sure, fine, I don't make the rules, the manga does. The Brimmed Caps believe magic shouldn't be locked away from regular people, which sounds almost sympathetic in premise. Hey, maybe don't gatekeep an entire discipline of reality-bending knowledge from the masses, is not, on its face, an insane political position. Except their actual methodology for spreading that magic involves drawing forbidden, unstable spells directly onto human bodies, which tends to have consequences ranging from horrific mutation to you are now a monster permanently, forever. Sorry about that. So it's less magic for the people and more magic for the people, whether or not the people asked, whether or not it turns them into a wolf creature against their will. We don't really do consent forms here. There's a genuinely disturbing sequence where a side character named Uini, a sweet, anxious kid who's been getting emotionally abused by his own master, because apparently every single adult in this world needs to attend a seminar on appropriate mentorship, gets a forbidden rune forcibly drawn onto him by one of the Brimmed Cap villains, and it turns him into a rampaging wolf monster against his will. Just completely non-consensually rewrites his entire body and mind, and the show does not play this as a fun action beat, it plays it as horrifying, because it is. This is a manga that will absolutely lull you into thinking it's a soft, pastel, girls doing magic and baking bread kind of story, and then remind you, with zero warning, that the actual stakes are your body can be forcibly rewritten by strangers with a pen if the wrong ideology gets a hold of you. So if you want the elevator pitch, and I know it's way too late for an elevator pitch, we are nowhere near an elevator right now. Witch Hat Atelier is basically, what if magic worked like an extremely precise, extremely dangerous form of tattooing? What if the entire adult establishment running that system was more interested in secrecy and gatekeeping than actually protecting anyone? And what if every single main character was a traumatized teenage girl who found actual healthy family structure specifically by escaping the adults who were supposed to protect them in the first place, but didn't? It's cozy. It's horrifying. It's got better world-building logic than shows with 10 times the budget, and it will make you cry over a girl learning to draw a magic circle correctly for the first time, which is not a sentence I expected to say with a straight face, but here we are. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, the actual drawn art is insane, like unreasonably detailed. The mangaka draws every single casting seal as an actual fully realized, geometrically consistent magic circle, by hand, over and over, page after page, at a level of obsessive detail that makes you wonder if she's secretly also running an actual underground tattoo parlor on the side for stress relief. It's the kind of art where you stop reading the dialogue for a second and just stare at a magic circle going, wait, did she actually design this so it would technically function as real drafting geometry? And the answer, unbelievably, appears to be yes. Okay, let's talk about Coco's actual arc for a second, because it's not just girl learns magic, it's genuinely doing something smarter with the chosen one formula by just not having one. This is important. In most fantasy stories, the protagonist is special because of some bloodline thing, some destiny thing, some you were the prophesied one all along thing. Coco is not that. Coco is, by every metric the story gives us, kind of mediocre at the actual craft of magic for a huge chunk of the early story. Her hands shake. Her lines aren't precise. She's slower than her fellow apprentices, and the show does not pretend otherwise. What makes Coco interesting isn't raw talent, it's that she thinks about magic completely differently than anyone raised inside witch society does, because she wasn't raised inside witch society. She looks at spells the way an actual outsider would, asking, wait, why can't we do this? Why is this forbidden? Why doesn't anyone question this rule? In a culture that has spent generations training its members not to ask those exact questions. This matters a lot for the whole secrecy theme, because Coco keeps stumbling into genuinely good, useful magical innovations specifically because she doesn't know she's not supposed to think outside the box. At one point, she just casually starts prototyping accessibility magic, literally designing spells to help people with disabilities function more easily in daily life, because it doesn't occur to her that magic should only be used for combat and fancy tricks and gate-kept nonsense. The old guard witches around her are stunned by this, not because it's technically difficult, but because none of them had ever considered doing it, because they'd all been raised inside a system that trains you to think about magic as a private privilege to be protected, not a tool to actually help regular people. Coco basically walks into an ancient, calcified institution and goes, hey, wild idea, what if the thing we can do that helps people, we just use to help people? And everyone in the room short-circuits a little. And this is where the show gets genuinely thoughtful under all the wolf monster horror and hat-based moral alignment. The actual villains, the brimmed caps, aren't wrong that magic being locked away from ordinary people is a problem. Their solution is just monstrous, forced, non-consensual, and destructive. Coco represents the other possible answer. Instead of forcibly imposing magic onto people who never asked for it, you slowly, carefully, ethically open the door, teach people who genuinely want to learn, design magic that helps without harming, question the secrecy without blowing the whole system up in a way that gets random bystanders turned into scale wolves. It's basically a story about reform versus revolution, dressed up as a cozy magic school anime with a body horror subplot, which is a genuinely more ambitious thing to be doing than 90% of stuff in this genre bothers attempting. I also want to shout out Kifri for a second, because on the surface he's your standard mysterious mentor with a tragic past archetype, but the show slowly reveals that his backstory is way more tangled up in the brimmed cap conflict than it initially looks. Without spoiling the specifics, because I do have some restraint apparently, it turns out Kifri has a much more personal, complicated history with the whole forbidden magic underworld than guy who happened to find a lost kid and felt bad. His whole, gentle, patient mentor persona is doing some very deliberate emotional load-bearing work. The same way, basically every adult in this story is quietly performing composure over something much messier underneath. Which, side note, is apparently why witches wear those big dramatic pointed hats in the first place. There's an actual in-universe justification that witches are trained to suppress and hide their emotions, and the hat is partly a physical symbol of I am composed, I am in control, you will not see me falter. Which is an incredible piece of world building because it means literally every single witch's fashion choice in this manga is secretly a coping mechanism. Everyone is wearing their trauma, it's just also a really good hat. Anyway, that's Witch Hat Atelier. 9-year-old accidentally petrifies her mom, gets adopted by a possibly traumatized wizard with a secret past, moves in with 3 other traumatized teenage witches, learns that magic is basically precision tattoo art with lethal consequences for bad handwriting, discovers the entire adult establishment she's been thrown into is hiding something, and slowly starts proving that maybe, just maybe, the actual answer to should ordinary people have access to magic isn't no, obviously not, or yes, forcibly whether they consent or not, but something a lot more patient and a lot more radical. Just teach people carefully, kindly, and stop assuming the world can't handle nice things. Anyway, that's the pitch. Go read it. Or don't, and I'll just corner you again at the next party. Your call. Actually, wait. Hang on. Sit back down. I skipped a whole thing, and it's genuinely one of the best parts. Let's talk about Tetia's pen problem, because it's low-key one of the most quietly brilliant disability metaphors I've seen in a manga that's also somehow about wolf monsters and hat politics. So Tetia, the apprentice who's constantly starved for validation, has a physical problem that basically every other witch in this universe treats as a personal failing rather than what it actually is. She has an extremely low pain tolerance, to the point where the physical sensation of drawing a casting seal, which for most witches is basically neutral, like writing your name, is agonizing for her. Every spell she casts, she's doing it through actual physical pain that nobody else experiences the same way. And for a huge chunk of the story, the assumption, both from other characters and honestly from the reader if you're not paying close attention, is that she's just bad at magic, or not trying hard enough, or too sensitive, or needs to toughen up. Classic, just push through it energy that I promise you have heard directed at real people with real invisible conditions more times than you'd like to count. And the show's answer to this isn't Tetia trains really hard and eventually overcomes the pain through sheer will, which is the boring, slightly toxic version of this arc that 90% of shonen manga would have gone with. The actual answer is that Coco, being the outsider who doesn't assume the existing tools are the only tools, works with Tetia to literally redesign her equipment, finding or crafting a different kind of pen, adjusting the whole physical process of casting, so that Tetia can actually do magic without being in agony the entire time. It's not a believe in yourself arc, it's an accessibility arc. It's the tool was built for a default body that isn't yours, so let's change the tool, which is such a specifically thoughtful piece of writing that I genuinely didn't expect from a manga whose villains dress like evil Amish beekeepers. This connects back to the bigger theme running under literally everything in this story, which is that the existing witch establishment has spent generations optimizing its entire system, its secrecy, its tools, its traditions, around a very narrow definition of who gets to succeed, and anyone who doesn't fit that mold gets quietly written off as deficient, rather than the system being examined for who it was actually built for. Coco keeps stumbling into fixes for this, not because she's some genius reformer with a manifesto, but because she just doesn't have the ingrained assumption that things have to stay the way they've always been. It's honestly kind of a stealth thesis statement for the whole manga. The people most likely to fix a broken system are the ones who were never fully let inside it in the first place, because they're the only ones who don't take its dysfunction for granted. Let's also talk about Agathe for a second, because I did her a little dirty earlier by just calling her the Ice Queen rival, and she deserves more than that. Agathe comes from one of the most prestigious witch families in the entire setting. We're talking old money, generational reputation, the kind of family where showing up to a gathering without perfect etiquette is basically a crime against the ancestors. She gets accused of academic fraud, gets cast out, loses access to the elite training she was raised to expect as her birthright, and ends up at Kifri's atelier essentially as damage control, a last resort, the well I guess we'll just dump her somewhere less prestigious option. And her entire personality when we first meet her is built around desperately proving she still belongs at the top, that she's still worthy of the family name she got stripped of, that this whole detour to a random countryside atelier is temporary and beneath her. What makes her arc land is that the show slowly reveals just how much of her rigidity, her coldness, her obsession with rules and proper technique is actually a defense mechanism against the terror of being cast out again. If she follows every rule perfectly, if she's flawless in her technique, if she never gives anyone a reason to doubt her, maybe she won't lose everything a second time. It's the same underlying wound as everyone else in this house, just wearing a completely different costume, where Tetia's wound shows up as desperate people-pleasing, and Rich's shows up as guarded defiance. Agathe shows up as perfectionism, so intense it reads as coldness. Watching her slowly let that guard down around Coco, who has genuinely zero interest in playing status games and just wants to be friends with the scary rich girl, is one of the more understated but effective relationship arcs in the whole story. And okay, one more thing before I let you go refill your drink. The Tower of Tomes. This place is basically the Library of Alexandria, if the Library of Alexandria was also a heavily fortified vault containing every scrap of forbidden magical knowledge in existence, and it's introduced early as Coco's actual goal, the place she needs to get access to if she's ever going to find a cure for her stone mother. It's a great structural device because it gives the story a concrete, personal stake underneath all the political world-building about secrecy and brimmed caps and hat-based morality. Every time the plot threatens to get lost in institutional lore, it snaps back to this very simple, very human thing. There's a little girl who turned her mom into a rock by accident, and everything she's doing, every rule she's learning to bend, every system she's slowly starting to question, ultimately traces back to wanting her mother back. It's genuinely one of the more effective through lines I've seen, because it keeps a story about magical bureaucracy and forbidden tattoo runes from ever feeling like it's just world building for world building's sake. So yeah, that's the actual pitch, extended cut. Traumatized found family, precision tattoo magic system, secret evil hat cult, a disability metaphor that actually respects the people it's representing, and a little girl trying to unrock her mom while accidentally starting a quiet institutional reform movement along the way. If that doesn't sound like your thing, I genuinely don't know what to tell you. Go enjoy your normal, well-adjusted anime about high schoolers with swords or whatever. I'll be over here, still talking, because nobody has physically stopped me yet. Quick bonus round before you flee, because I know you're eyeing the door. The villain hierarchy in this thing is also weirdly compelling for a group whose entire brand is wide-brimmed hat instead of pointy hat. The brimmed caps aren't a cartoonishly evil monolith either. Some of them genuinely, sincerely believe magic should be freed from institutional gatekeeping, and the show lets a few of them be sympathetic in their motivations even while condemning their methods, which is a much more interesting choice than evil organization, evil for evil's sake, the end. You get characters like Egwin, who shows up early manipulating Coco's whole origin tragedy into motion, clearly playing a longer game that connects back to Kufri's mysterious past in ways the story only slowly lets you piece together. It's less mustache-twirling villain and more extremist reform movement with a body count, which, again, is a genuinely unusual thing to be doing in a manga whose cover art looks like a whimsical children's book about friendly witches baking bread. And honestly, that contrast, soft, gentle, pastel presentation wrapped around a story that's actually interrogating institutional gatekeeping, generational trauma, disability access, and the ethics of forced versus consensual change is exactly why I will not shut up about this manga at parties. It looks like a cozy hug. It reads like someone quietly slipped a graduate thesis on systemic reform into your bedtime story. That's a rare combination, and it's why, against my better judgment, I'm going to keep cornering people about it until everyone I know has read it out of sheer self-defense. Okay, that's genuinely it this time. Go refill your drink. I'll allow it. Oh, actually, real quick, one more thing, because I promise this is the last one. The whole witches wipe your memory if you learn too much rule gets way funnier once you notice how often it's played for actual slapstick instead of pure horror. There are running bits where regular townsfolk stumble onto some clearly magical nonsense, go wide-eyed for a second, and then get very calmly, very professionally mind-wiped by whatever witch happens to be standing nearby, like it's just an occupational hazard of living in this world, the magical equivalent of a barista wiping down a spill. Nobody in-universe treats it as sinister on a day-to-day level, which somehow makes it more unsettling than if the show played it completely straight, because it means an entire population has just normalized casual memory erasure as an acceptable cost of doing business with the local witch guild. Imagine finding out your neighbor can bend reality and the resolution is cool. Anyway, you don't remember this conversation, and everyone's just fine with that. That's the world. That's the vibe. Cozy on the surface, deeply unhinged the second you actually think about the logistics for more than 5 seconds, which is, at this point, basically the tagline for the entire manga. Alright, now go refill your drink. For real this time.